Hey good people, welcome back to Beauty and the Frizz. My name is Cara. Whether you are new or returning, thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me today for a good one. I am going to be talking all about the fall eyeshadow palettes in my collection. I have 20 right here, and y'all know I love talking about eyeshadow palettes. So if you want to see my little collection, well, it's not even little, my collection of fall eyeshadow palettes, keep on watching this video. Let me know what you think, if you have any of these or you're pulling them out for the season, or if you use them all year round. And if makeup is your therapy and your love, if it makes you happy and you want to hang out with someone that feels the same way, definitely consider joining the community because I'd love to have you back. All right, let's get started. So I hope you all are doing well. I am really excited to do this video. It's been on my list of videos to do for a minute, and I did not go back and look at my video from last year to see what I chose, but I probably should do that. I'm curious what I filmed, and did I do 10 palettes, or I don't know. So let's go ahead and get started because I have 20 palettes here. I'm going to start with the palette that is on my eyes right now. This is the Notoriously Morbid Rusted Essence palette. I've finally gotten a chance to sit down and play with it. So this video is probably going to be coming up next. Look at this, you all. Oh my gosh. This is such a beautiful palette. This is fall in a palette for me. If you have not tried Notoriously Morbid and you are looking to try indie eyeshadow brands, this is one that I would definitely have on my list. I love their palettes. I love their color stories, but I will let you know the palettes can be here today and gone tomorrow. Now, they usually do put the palettes out as singles, but the palettes just sell out so quick. I have only done one look with this. Let me just zoom in on it so you can see how beautiful it is because it's fresh. Like, look how pretty this look is. It is gorgeous. I'm just going to swatch a few of the shades in this palette so you can see these shimmers. We have Self-Pity right here, which is just a beautiful kind of like, look at that green. We have Self-Pity. This shade right here is called Fur and Feathers. Beautiful. I don't even think you can really just see, like, this has a lot of sparkle in it. And the other one I want to swatch is Will Burn. And this is more of a chunky one. So look how beautiful these shades are. And then the mattes are great. The mattes can be a bit powdery, but if you tap off your brush, they blend out so well. I was really excited to get my hands on this palette and not sure at this time whether or not this palette is still in stock. But if you like unique palettes that are gonna be just kind of one of a kind, I would check out Notoriously Morbid. They are a really, really good brand. So I am going to be filming another look with this palette, and I can't wait to see what I come up with this one. So yeah, this is definitely on my list for a palette that I want to use this fall. And I do feel like most of these palettes are fall inspired. So that's definitely on my list for fall palettes, and a palette that I would love to use this fall, or use more this fall. Now, palette number 2 is coming from Tammy Tanuka, and unfortunately we cannot purchase from Tammy Tanuka right now because this is a Russian brand, but this is the Toad palette. And I just love this palette because it's just really grungy, but I still think it embodies fall. Like, the greens in here are not the bright summery greens. To me, they're more of like the greens that are about to transition to brown. And I just think that makes a great palette. Now, this shade right here, 095, this is a beautiful duochrome shade. So I don't know if you can see it, but it looks green and kind of brown. Let me just try that out here. Look at that. That is such a gorgeous, gorgeous shade. And my camera's going in and out of focus. But I mean, I love Pat McGrath, but I will say Tammy Tanuka is right up there with Pat McGrath. The mattes and the shimmers. I said what I said. It is a great brand. When we can purchase from her again, I mean, she's still releasing palettes, and she does these stories with different loose pigments and singles, and they're amazing. So yeah, this is a pretty grungy looking palette, and I love like these are called like the egg palettes. So I have the frog, the peacock, I have the mini chinchilla, black glove. I have a couple of them. Well, more than a couple, but I just haven't really been filming with them because it's not something that people can get. But I wouldn't mind putting this in a palette rotation. It's been hard for me to film my makeup in the morning and do those palette rotation videos. But this is a great palette. And the other thing I want to say about Tammy Tanuka that I really like is that she does sell these palettes in minis. So even though this is a small 6-pan, she sells one that will like literally fit in the palm of your hand. So if you just want to try it out, or you have a lot of eyeshadow and you want to really be able to use it up, you can get her palettes in the mini size. So that's palette number 2.
Why he didn't finish both of his medicines?
He finished it.
No.
The other medicine was from this morning.
There's a pink. There's still pink.
Oh, that reminds me, I have to give him his amoxicillin. Thank you for reminding me. No, that was from...
That's Mark.
No, it's not. That's a number I don't recognize. I don't answer those.
How did he get your number?
I'm not sure how they get my number, so I don't answer. May I finish?
Mark, he didn't finish his medicine.
You did tell me that, and I'm going to take care of it, okay? And I really do appreciate you looking out for him, okay?
Rock the baby.
We can show them Rock the Baby when I at least need to get through some of these palettes.
1, 2.
All right, I'll see you in a few. Palette number 3 is an oldie but goodie in my collection, you guys. And I have been talking about this a lot because y'all know Makeup Revolution has released a Game of Thrones collection for no reason. I just can't. And it just always makes me want to bring out my Urban Decay palette. I feel like, you know, this was when Urban Decay was still Urban Decay, I guess. But I love this palette, and the whole palette isn't fall to me, but we do have the Winterfell section of the palette and the the Lannister section of the palette from Game of Thrones. If you are a fan, you will know what I'm talking about. Let me just show you up close. And these shades still perform pretty nice. I haven't put this palette on my eyes in some time, but you know, I just love these kind of rustic shades, these browns, kind of this orangey brown. You know, I just think about the leaves changing. So you've got green, you've got a plum shade, this red here. And then these 2 shades are actually transforming shades that are toppers for any of the shades that you want to put on. But like this green here is a really nice one. What's this one called? The Sight. Ooh, about to drop it, about to drop my palette. So, and these aren't duochrome or anything like that, but I just really like these shades. So this is one of the transition ones. It's kind of like an antique-y type shade. And actually these shades can stand alone. So I know they're like the transforming shades, but this section of the palette really just reminds me of fall and gives me some fall vibes. So maybe I can come out and do some looks with this. Does anybody have this palette or ever pull it out from time to time? I really thought this was great. And I mean, just for kicks, let me just show you the Iron Throne, because I mean, this was how you do a collection. Like what they did with that Prince collection, I don't know what they were doing. I don't know what they were thinking. And then Makeup Revolution, they had that beauty blender sitting on the throne. How about no, Scott? How about no? Let me know if you guys are watching the House of Dragons spinoff, because I know people say that the Lord of the Rings show is good, but see, I wasn't a Lord of the Rings, I didn't read those books. I only read one of the Game of Thrones books, but that is my favorite show of all time. My sister and I rewatch all 8 seasons. We've done it more than once. I'm about to start it up again, so that's how much I'm into it. So I'm really into House of Dragons and the history of it, and it's just so good. But I thought this was a great release, and I still have the highlighter palette, and I still have some of my liners. Like, they are going strong. So yes, this is what, number 3. Let me move on because we definitely have more palettes to talk about. and I don't want to hold y'all here all night. Well, maybe I do want to hold y'all here all night. So palette number 4 is a new addition to my collection, and this is the Natasha Denona My Dream palette. And I have several Natasha Denona palettes in this lineup, so let's keep them all together. But here is the My Dream palette, and I've used this a few times. I really like it because there are some warm shades in here that remind me of bronze, a little bit of retro, a slight hint of glam, but not too much glam, because y'all know that palette was not for me. But there's some just nice shades in here, and I love the cream to powder shades that she's got. This is a really nice everyday palette, but it also lends itself to some glam looks. When I think about fall, I'm kind of thinking of like these shades over here, like this plum. Love this pink to green kind of duochrome flip there. It is definitely a palette that I am going to be reaching for when I'm not filming, because when I really do use pretty much a different palette every day, but like when I'm not filming, this is the type of palette I would really go for. So I really like Invention, which is what I just swatched, and Thrill. Thrill is a nice shade too, not necessarily fall, but just a nice shade. If you were looking at this for VIB for Sephora, I would definitely pay for this palette with the 20% off. And if you don't like the cream to powder matte shades, I would not get this palette. But if you do like her cream to mattes, which I have come to really like, I wasn't into them at first because I didn't understand that formula. If you do like them, this is a really nice palette. It has some really nice matte shades. By the way, I did order the Huda Empowered palette. Just wanted to share that because I was thinking that these were similar, but I have been watching some comparison videos, and I mean, who am I kidding? I was going to get the Huda Beauty palette, so there's that. So sticking with Natasha Denona, we're going to go to palette number 5, which is the Natasha Denona Sunset palette. Now this is one of her larger palettes. That's not a snack, but okay. Only a few. Rosie not gonna be able to have dessert. And here she is. I love this palette, and one of the things that really stands out to me that makes this like really fall vibes, aside from obviously the red, the orange, and the deep browns, but I love this yellow shade right here. I think, thank you, August. I told you I would take care of marking his medicine. I think this is just a beautiful yellow, and I've worn this palette with the yellow as an inner corner highlight, and I think it just looks really nice. I think this will also look nice on the lid, like for an all matte look. I haven't tried that yet. I think this palette is a great one for the fall, and right now it is on sale at Sephora for $64.50. So if this is around for VIB, you can really get this for a steal, because you know these palettes are her $129 palettes. So for $64.50 and then 20% off of that, I mean, this would really be a steal. So if this is a palette that you were ever looking at, I would keep my eye on it for the friends and family sale or for Black Friday. But even $64.50 is a good price, because $129 is not the way to go. So I really like this palette, and I'm going to be pulling it out this fall as well. And of course, when I talk about my Natasha Denona palettes, I cannot talk about Natasha Denona without mentioning what is going to be palette number 6, my very first Natasha Denona palette, which is the bronze palette. This has to be one of my favorites, and I'm always wanting to buy a fresh one. I don't know why, because this palette it's fine. Like, I don't know, but I'm like, I want a fresh one. I don't need a fresh one. This one, I just think that all of the shades go together, and the standout shades for me are these two deep ones, Deep Dive and Rhodium. I think these colors are really, really unique and add something special to the palette. They're just colors I don't have like a lot. So that was Rhodium. They're like the cream to powdery mattes. Deep Dive, they're really beautiful. Deep Dive is deeper than Rhodium. Yeah, I love those two shades, and they're so good for just like smoking out the outer corner and the crease. And then all of these shades, they just go together really well. I know that they may be a bit similar for some people, but yeah, because the differences are kind of slight. But I love this palette because I don't really have to think too much when I use it. Either I want to smoke out my outer corner with one of these, or I'm going to use Magma. One of these are going to go in the transition area, and then I can really pop on any shimmer that I want to, and it's going to look right. It doesn't matter. And I know at this point, these types of shades, they're really not unique, but I just think that they fit well in this palette. And I think this just has some sentimental value for me because it was my very first Natasha Denona palette. And I was really, really excited to just to try her brand out. You know what I mean? Palette is one that's like a go-to for me because there's just no effort involved. All right, palette number 7 is a palette. When it came out, a lot of people were really into this palette and wanting to try it. I felt like it was a pretty big deal because this brand, I don't know, has kind of fallen off the radar a bit. And it is the MAC Feast Your Eyes palette. And this palette came out last year, and I think they were introducing some different formulas. Here's what it looks like up close. And I do remember that this palette was selling out all over the place, and I don't think it came back. And I ended up getting, they had this face, I don't know what it was called. It was kind of like a highlighter, but not really. I can't remember what it was called. And then they had some really nice lipsticks, which I still have like 3 of them. But I thought this was a nice fall release for MAC. I don't remember this palette being as pigmented. I'm gonna have to do a do we still love her with this one because I can't remember. I love this like coppery shade. I love coppers. And again, these are gonna be some of the same types of shades that are in like that Natasha Denona bronze palette. There's a couple toppers. You have like this kind of grungy antique green. Now, I don't know, upon swatching this, I know I have some that are better than this. But, and then there were like some creamy shades. Yes, like this plum shade. This plum shade was a cream, almost feeling like the Natasha Denona cream to powder mattes. The brown was a cream. So I just remember this palette being a big deal. So when I think about my fall palettes, I do think about this. Now, I don't think this palette is Natasha Denona quality. And some of these shimmers like this one, and this one, they seem to be a bit more sheer and toppery than anything else. You see how sheer that one is? So I don't think this is a palette that I'm gonna reach for like, oh my gosh, the shimmers are so great. But I do like those creamy mattes. I do like those. Anyway, I don't know if we still love her, but it is a fall palette in my collection, and I did want to revisit it because it was all the rage. I don't know if it was all the rage, but I remember it was like, a lot of people were into it, and they really, really liked this packaging. Let me show it to you. It's like, you know, with the harvest type theme. So a lot of people were into this palette. Palette number 8 is one of my favorite palettes that I bought, I guess, last year. This is the Red Dragon palette, which was a collaboration between Oden's Eye and Judy as part of the legendary Diversa collection. I really, really love this palette. This palette, to me, was a sleeper in the collection. A lot of people were into the Hummingbird palette, which was with the fancy face, as well as the Giant Wolves palette. But this was one palette, I wanted this palette for sure. I love these mustards, the bright red. Oh my gosh. Like, you can use this red to kind of smoke out the outer corner. I know it's not deep, but it's a whole vibe. Like, I just love Oden's Eye. And each of these legendary Diversa palettes, they each had a multi-chrome, which I thought was cool. I just think this palette performed really well. And if you take out this red, I mean, the palette is not like that bright or that red, you know? I think that the looks that you can create are very fall-esque, and the choice of mattes that you have, The choice of the smoke shades, like these deep mattes, the transitions are great. This is another palette where I think you can put any of the colors together and you're gonna have something really beautiful. I don't see anything that's like really out of place. I know some people may not be comfortable using this, but you can always put it in the transition and then use one of the burgundies to deepen it up and then pop on one of these shimmers and you're gonna have something beautiful. So I love this palette. I love it a lot. So palette number 9 is a palette, another palette that a lot of people, when they saw it, they were like, ooh, okay, this is different for the brand. And this is the Nars Climax palette. I hate saying that. Call it the C palette. And this is a different palette for me to showcase because I have decided as of today, I'm really not into cool tones. I just don't feel like they're for me. Like when I look at my look here, the warmer shades, I just feel more comfortable in and just give me more of a glow. Whereas the cool tones, I don't know, I'm just not into them as much. So I'm curious about pulling this palette out and seeing what I think about it a year later. But a lot of people were into it and were saying like how nice the shimmers were or are in this palette. And I do agree. The shimmers in this palette are fantastic. Like you've got a blue, that's a blue that I wouldn't mind wearing. The green is really beautiful. You've got this kind of taupey silver shade. And you have a, I don't know if you would call this rose gold here. But beautiful, beautiful shimmers in this palette. And then you have a nice choice of mattes. You've got a cool green, kind of a eggplant, and then these 2 transition shades. So, and then this is like a satiny deep taupe. So I think this palette is really nice and does give off the fall vibes. If you're not into warm tones, I think that this palette would really suit you well. I really do need to pull this out and see what I think. Some cool tones are okay. It really just depends. I was wearing the Tom Ford Moonlit Violet Shade and Illuminate palette at work this morning. And I don't know, when I went in the bathroom and looked at it, I was like, I don't like this on me. Like I can do a mix, like maybe the taupey shimmer with that plum shade to kind of have some type of contrast, but just all cool is not my favorite. But I did want to try this palette out. I'll have to go back and revisit this video and see what I thought about the looks that I created, but I definitely think that the quality of this palette is really good. I am not sure if this palette is still available, and if it is, I think I may have seen it on the Nars website, but I might be lying about that. I'll let you know in the description box. Now, palette number 10 is by Kaleidos, and this is the Shasimi City palette. I wanted to bring this out as a palette that I really want to pull out this fall. Now, this is gonna give you more lighter looks. You've got 2 browns that are a bit similar. One is deeper than the other. And then you have these 2. Oh, you do? Well, first of all, you need to go wipe your mouth because that's unacceptable. That is unacceptable. Yeah, so these 2 transitions, like I said, these are gonna give you like the lighter fall looks, you know, not the super, super grungy looks. And honestly, this is a palette I would wear all year round. I love this shade here. And we have seen this shade a lot, but I'm a huge fan of the little pink to gold type flip. Got a nice little lid shade or inner corner highlight here. And yeah, you might not look at this and think fall, but it's a palette that I want to pull out and wear. I always am happy with my looks. Excuse me, have you taken a shower? Because we're asking for things and not giving. And don't you start that, excuse me, sir, because I'm not a sir.
Excuse me.
Anyway, I really like this palette. So now let's talk about 2 palettes from Unearthly Cosmetics. First, I'm going to talk about, well, this is going to be obvious. This is the Fall Magic palette, a palette that I need to still do a video on. I did purchase this one from the brand. I think this color story is a really unique color story. It gives off fall vibes, but it's not your traditional red, brown, orange, you know, palette. You've got some unique colors in here. So you have your plums, but you've got like these beautiful shimmers. You have this beautiful green here. This is a really unique matte color here. Got a purple. What I like about this palette is that it is fall, but it's just not traditional. And I just think it's a beautiful palette. Like, do y'all see this? I can't. I don't know if you can really see like the flip in this shape, but that's gorgeous. Let's try Leaves. Ooh, Leaves is really pretty as well. Now this is kind of cool, right? But I think this still has some warm elements in it. So I like that because I think this pink is kind of warm, this orange, this shimmer here. But then you do have some cool browns. So I can do the mix. The mix will work for me. The all cool is not gonna work for me. But I am really excited to try this palette out. I can see you doing some like light looks, but then some grungy ones too. Okay, video needs to be coming on that ASAP because I have not used it. I've just kind of played around swatching it, but we need to get this one going. I will list in the description box whether or not these palettes are still available. The other palette that I wanted to bring out was the Lure palette from Unearthly Cosmetics. This is another one that I think gives off some fall vibes, but still has a different color story. You got like this mustardy, orangey yellow color with the orange here. And then some of these colors, I want to say maybe one of them, no, two, are in the All I Ever Wanted palette, like Sphinx. Oh, look how beautiful Sphinx is. Like, gives you that wet look. And then Basilisk. Oh, look at that green. It's so good. Medusa, another beautiful shade. Like, these can stand on their own or be toppers. I'm running out of room. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. I don't even know what to do. Then you have the black one here that you can use to not only smoke out, but put this on the lid and put one of these shades on top. It just gives a whole different vibe. Griffin is another one. Oh my gosh, I was about to not show y'all Griffin. Like, look how pretty that is. I feel like my swatches are not really coming through the way they should right now, but I wanted to bring this one and add this to the bunch of fall palettes. This is a palette I have not used in a while, so it'd be nice to bring this one back out and, you know, see, like, do we still love her? Because, like, the unique color stories are just, they're just everything. Let me do my hand like that. Palettes 13 and 14 are coming from none other than Melt Cosmetics. And we're gonna start with the palette that's been by my side. Has been by my side from the jump. This is my first Melt Cosmetics palette, and y'all probably already know what it is because I talk about it all the time, but I need to be wearing it. It is the Rust palette, and this, like, Melt, I need y'all to not be coming out with those Zodiac palettes because this palette is so great. Now, I did change out the blend out shade in here because I just didn't need that in my life. But Rust is just, I always talk about Erode. Erode is just such a beautiful, like, look at how opaque that shade is. It is just one of the best mustardy yellows I've ever seen. Like, look at that. It is, I mean, this palette is 2 years old. This came out in 2020. And again, my first Melt Cosmetics palette. This is like their good shimmer formula, like the good kind. Like the good kind, okay? It's not crusty. It's not dusty. No, you are not getting crusty dusty with the Rust palette. You're getting pure Rust. Like, beautiful, beautiful shades, beautiful mattes. And this is just, to me, the epitome of a fall palette. So I just had to talk about Rust. A little over a year later, I got 27. And 27 is also that good melt. And look, this one just reminds me of, like, if you take out this shade, for some reason it reminds me of chocolate milk. I think it's this color right here. But, like, look at Moxie. Like, look, this shade is so vibrant. It is such a beautiful, vibrant orange. And I think people sleep on this palette. Another palette that, let me just double check. I wanna say, now this one only has 2 shimmers. The shimmers are not too different than the ones that we see in Rust. But again, it's that good melt shimmer. It's not the crusty, crumbly ones. I don't know why they can't make all their shimmers like that, because these 2 palettes do not have the crumbly shimmers. Like those 2 shimmers in Mary Jane on the outer edges, I took those out too. Because I love me some Mary Jane, but not those 2 outer shimmers. The Blueprint has a dusty shimmer. Secretly, I feel like She's in Parties might have one dusty shimmer. Millennial Pinks has a dusty shimmer as well. Couple. But Rust in 27. Brunette doesn't have any dusty shimmers. But Brunette, that's a... All right, oh, we're not done with melt. Y'all, I'm just starting to like Amore Mary Poses. And this one also does not have the crusty shimmer. I just started liking this palette a year later, and I did a little cute look. I'm trying to remember what shades I used, but like some of these shades, like the greens, the golds, the reds. Let me see if I can swatch something so y'all can see what I mean. So this is Sagrado, beautiful. Mesquite. Look at that. There's no dust. It's not, I can't. Tequila, beautiful. Michoacan. I'm probably saying it wrong. I cannot remember. Like Amore Mary Poses, the shimmers are great and the mattes are great. It's just, I think it's the circle pans for me. If these were 2 palettes with the regular pans, I think I'd be all over this. So it's just a marketing thing. But this palette has excellent quality. I would like to do an update video with this because I was just doing a look playing around and I was like, okay, I've been sleeping on this palette, and I think Melt is having a sale because this palette went down to $28 when they was really selling it for an arm and a leg, as well as that PR box. Palette number 16 is a new palette in my collection, and this is from Nomad. I'm coming. This is from Nomad Cosmetics. This is the Hudson Valley palette. If this isn't fall, I don't know what is. Now this palette is mostly matte and it's got 3 shimmers, but what I love about Nomad is always that they give you some information about Hudson Valley, and this time they gave you like an explanation with all of their shade names. I didn't have to figure it out this time, and they had a little scratch and sniff here that you could lift up. They always come with a card, and I just love the inspo behind their shades and the shade names and the meanings behind them. You may or may not be able to see the cute little embossings, and I like that this palette kind of has a warm side and a cool side separated by the 3 shimmers. So I think that's really nice. This does lend itself to some great matte looks, and the organization of the palette I think really does help you to achieve some nice looks. I also like the quality of the shimmers in this palette. Nomad doesn't always make my favorite shimmer formula, and sometimes I haven't used them with like, I'm trying to think if I've used them wet, but most of the time when I'm doing my videos I don't use them wet because I just want to see what the shimmers look like on their own. And like with the Provence palette, like I didn't like those shimmers, and I have come across some shimmers that aren't my favorites, but like these are really good. These are the shimmers that I really enjoy from Nomad Cosmetics. Sometimes they can come out with some sheer ones, but I think these were more opaque. Let's just see. I cannot remember. Oh yeah, I think these are like more of their opaque ones. So there's that one here. Let me just swatch them all. These are more of the opaque shimmers. Now I do feel like they don't have as much shine. And I'm always trying to find like what it is about the Nomad shimmers sometimes that I'm missing, but I don't think that their shimmers have as much shine. Like look at the Melt ones and you have that shine there. These don't have as much shine, but it doesn't make them less pretty. It's just a different formula. But I think they did a great job with this palette, and I think it really embodied the Hudson Valley, even though I've never been there. It's definitely a place that I would like to visit. And I don't know, this palette's just so crisp. It's just crisp. So that was palette number 16. I'm gonna get Marky out of the shower, and then we're gonna go with 17, 18, 19, and 20. All right, you guys, I'm back with clean children and arms. Let's talk about 17, 18, 19, and 20. Okay, let's talk about Sydney Gray's Mountain Trail. Why did I buy this? I don't know why I bought this. Oh, I bought this, No, the Tropicolor palette's not really fall. I mean, there's a few colors. I did buy this when I bought the Tropicolor palette, which was a collab with Fancy Face. This is making me realize that this is not the same as that new Dior Backstage palette. Damn. All right, anyway, I might get that for VIB. But this is the Mountain Trail palette. I think at one point they sold this as a bundle and maybe it wasn't a palette. I can't remember. But every time I swatch a Sydney Grace shimmer, I just feel like a lot of times they're just unmatched. It's not that they come out with a whole bunch of duochromes. They do have like the cream shadows that have duochromes, but it's just the opaqueness of their shimmers that I really enjoy. And here's the palette up close. I just don't feel like there's ever been a Sydney Grace anything where I'm just like, this is a dud or this isn't great. So this is just like a go-to everyday palette for me. And it does lean cool, but green is a little bit different. I don't know, green is a little different for me. So let's just look at a couple of these shimmers. We have the shade Light My World. Like, oh my God. Let's look at To Earth. Look at that, that is beautiful. Be the Sunshine is a beautiful gold. And it's a, like right here, it looks a bit like chartreuse. But I think it's a gold. No, maybe not gold. I don't know, let me know. I just think Sydney Grace shimmers are gorgeous. And I love the choice of mattes that they included in this palette. I think it was definitely worth buying. So I love this for fall. This reminds me of like the transitioning leaves, you know, it's like they're starting to die and the weather's starting to turn, but before the leaves turn, like the bright oranges and reds, you know, and yellows, it's like right before that time. Or it could be after they turn the bright orange, reds, and yellow, and then they're like going towards the brown. No, because then they wouldn't go back green. Okay, let me just stick with what I was saying. This is a great fall palette for me. And palette number 18, we are going with a luxury brand, which is Dior. This is the Velvet Quint in Red Tartan. And I can be such a sucker for red eyeshadows. I mean, there's only but so much that you need. But look at this. It is a really vibrant little quint here. And if you don't like a lot of sparkle and a lot of foil, a lot of shimmer, a lot of galacticness, this would be like the eyeshadow formula for you, because like there's really no fallout. It's really pigmented, but it's not going to be really shiny. Sometimes I'm in the mood for that and sometimes I'm not. When I'm in the mood for it, I do like the Dior Quints. I'm just not always in the mood for it. And I think this palette, like some people just would not be into this. It's too red. But I love the shades. This is like that velvet formula. So let me just swatch it so you can just see. And it's just smooth. Like it's really smooth. The shimmers are not shimming. I'm letting you know, they are not shimmy shimmers. They're more satin. And so for some people, it's gonna be like, well, what are we doing? You know what I mean? And I do feel like that sometimes. And then last but not least, we have this red in the middle. So there are those shades. And they may not swatch the best, but I think they swatch fairly well. I've really come to the conclusion that with the Dior Quints, because like when I use some of my indie stuff, I can use 5 shades, 6 shades, you know what I mean? But I've come to the conclusion with these Dior Quints, they're not meant to be used like that. They're more like 1 and done, 2 and done, and then an inner corner highlight. So at best, I'm gonna use 3 shades. Like that would be the most that I would use. So when I do want something quick and easy, and I may not want something that's like really blingy, and sometimes I'm in the mood for that, something soft and subtle, I like these, but they're pricey. So I don't know if it's worth it to everyone. I do have, I won't say I have a lot of the Dior Quints, but I do have a nice amount, and I've been going to them lately because I think I'm just starting to really enjoy smaller palettes like quads and like the Quints, and even like the Notoriously Morbid, like the 9 pan. You know, I for some time have just not been into these big palettes that have like 20, 30 shades. I'm never going for those. And I just like something that can be a go-to. And so this is one of those for me. So that's gonna be number 18. And we're gonna top it all off 19 and 20 with Mama Pat. And I want to end with Pat because, or Mama Pat, because if you watched my Celestial Nirvana video, you'll know that despite asking for these mattes and this colorful rainbow, that it's really not my favorite palette. So I wanted to end this video off with two palettes that I love by Mama Pat, that I have respect for, that I have loyalty to. And I couldn't choose one. Get my girl right here. So we've got Midnight Sun and we've got Bronze. Let me make sure. Seduction, because I can't remember if it's Ambition, Temptation. All right, let's start with, I'm gonna start with Midnight Sun. Midnight Sun has been the reigning favorite mothership. I've not re-ranked my motherships yet. I'm always re-ranking them, but I haven't filmed it. And so, first of all, I think this is Pat McGrath's most earthy palette. And this color story is just so beautiful. Without the special shades, this is a color story that I would buy hands down. And I think it is this shade of Vermilion Venom, yes, that really makes this, this one, I think this is Taboo and Extreme Dusk. These three shades actually, and Wicked Envy, really make these, actually Blood Moon, what is this, Orange Moon, Blood Orange, Blood Moon, 005, like this is just a fall palette to me. I think it is one of her most gorgeous, gorgeous palettes. Vermilion Venom, y'all, like this is just such a beautiful shade. And I know we've seen these swatches, we've seen these palettes, but you know, when I pull these palettes out, it always reminds me of why I fell in love with Pat McGrath in the beginning. And it just kind of fell off for me a bit after Divine Rose 2. But when I come back to these motherships, it's like, yes, yes. And I'm so glad that I have these to use. And truth be told, the Midnight Sun palette, this one has been on sale on her website for some time for $77. And I think that is an excellent price for this palette. I also think that if you are interested or were interested in the Isamaya French palette, the industrial palette, and I didn't do a comparison video, but I can. This palette is gonna give you some of those same.
Mom, after things is gonna be Chick-fil-A.
Oh, okay.
Look, it says why do they write Chick-fil-A?
That's how it's spelled. I'm glad that you're using your phonics, so, but we can go on the 28th. We can go if you'd like. So yes, this palette, the special shades are great. The purple is great. Blood Moon 005. Oh yeah, so what I was talking about was Isamaya Beauty. I like this palette better than the Isamaya French palette. I've had a little difficulty with that palette, to be honest with you. So when I want those types of shades, I mean, I can get them from here, this one, this one, this one. You can really pull off a similar look. Oh, this palette, y'all. Okay, I need to stop because I'm sure this video is long and I could go on and on and on talking about eyeshadow palettes and my nostalgic love of Pat McGrath. I still love Mama Pat, but she's just coming out with stories that aren't my vision, and I don't need them to be my vision. I can just say I don't like this and still love the other stuff. You know what I mean? So this is Bronze Seduction, and every time I pull out this palette, I fall in love with it all over again. And you take out the special shades, you definitely have a neutral vibe. Not like screaming fall.
No, is it October 24th?
It is not. It's October 4th.
October 4th?
Yeah.
So this comes out until the 28th?
Yeah.
I thought it was October 24th.
It's not.
Oh, because we had 24 days of school.
Yes, left. until the trunk or treat.
So dumb.
You're not dumb. You just...
Wait, 24 days until trunk or treat?
Yes. So here we go. Here, I mean, extreme aubergine. Such a beautiful eggplant. You have a Blitz. Hold on. Blitz Flame. Ah, I don't think that's what it's called. Yes, it is. I know what I'm talking about. Blitz Flame. These special shades might be some of my favorite special shades. One of them is VR Fire Opal. Yeah, this one right here. Like, having these indie shades in a palette, I just think, I'm not sure, but might not have been very common. Look at this rose gold situation. Let's do Blitz Flame. Blitz Flame is just so smooth, honey. Like, I can't. I can. I don't know which one I like better. These may be 1 and 2 right now as far as the ranking, and I don't know how I would choose between the two of them because they are just, I need this. I need this back in my life. And Mothership Tim wasn't giving it because it was cool. And see, I have my mindset that the cool tones are just not my vibe. But these little warm, earthy, I just love fall, rustic, farmhouse, bronze. I'm just in love with the fall palettes. And fall is my favorite season. I love sweater weather. I just love hoodies, wearing my track pants. I'm just into it. I'm so into it and so happy. So those are my 20 palettes. I hope that maybe this jogs your memory about palettes that you have in your collection. I've talked to people who rotate their palettes like they do their clothing, and I've talked to people who just have everything out all year. So no matter which way you group your palettes or pull your palettes out, I just encourage you to look through your collection if you have any of these. I mean, even if you just pull it out and look at it and have some good old memories and moments about the palette or buying it. I love all of it. And one of the things I say is, like, when I think about my eyeshadow palettes, and y'all know makeup is a fairly new hobby for me, probably, well, end of 2019 is when I started. So it's not like I was wearing a whole bunch of makeup through high school and all that. But since I've started buying makeup and collecting makeup, it's one, obviously about wearing the makeup, but I also get a lot of enjoyment, not just from swatching the makeup, but when I buy these palettes and then pull them out and look at them, it reminds me of what was going on at the time. So when I started my channel, you know, we were in the midst of the pandemic. So the Rust palette really stands out to me. The Natasha Denona bronze palette, as I talked about, really stands out to me. My Pat McGrath palettes stand out to me. I'm thinking Bronze Seduction actually stands out to me more than Midnight Sun. And the reason why is because when Mel Thompson did one of her rankings, this was her favorite Mothership, and it was the newest one at that time. And that was when I first found out who Pat McGrath was, because I had no idea. I could never fathom paying $125 for a palette, and I had no idea who Pat McGrath was. That's how I kind of went down that rabbit hole. But that's why Bronze Seduction will always stand out to me, because of that ranking that she did. So there's just certain palettes that remind me of a certain time. And that's how I feel about music. When I hear a certain song, you know, it brings you back to a moment. And I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. You know, even when I think about Amori Mary Poses, I think about how beautiful that promo was for that entire collection and just how it just tanked. I think about how angry I was when it launched and it was on sale, you know, and I had already bought, at the pre-launch, I had bought the PR box. You know, I think about all of those things, and Melt did make it right, by the way. So that's not an issue or a sore spot. But yeah, I think about my palettes like that, especially the eyeshadow palettes. I don't think too much about the lipsticks and things like that, but it just reminds me of like my CDs or my music collection, you know what I mean? So I get a lot of enjoyment out of the eyeshadow palettes, and at the same time, I know it's excessive. So that's why I have been decluttering and things like that. And I'm hoping that by the end of the year that I don't have too many more palettes than I started out with this year. So I'm still in like the 200 something range. And with the palettes that I purchased and decluttered, I'm still in that same range. I do want to keep my collection to a certain point, even though it's large. So I really enjoy it. And hopefully I didn't ramble too much about these fall palettes, but I'm excited to pull some of these out. I don't know if I'm going to pull all 20 of them out, but I am definitely looking forward to creating some looks. If there's any palettes that you saw here that you have that you want to see looks with, let me know. That is going to be it for this video. So let me know some of your favorite fall palettes in the comments. I'm a little behind on comments, but I will get to all of them. Work has just been a lot this year. I'm really enjoying teaching 4th grade, and at the same time it's really consuming a lot of my time because I'm learning a brand new curriculum, and there's some things that I like, there's some things I don't like, but I'm teaching myself how to do certain math concepts, and it's been really time consuming. I miss my filming time in the morning, but it's hard because I have to be to work a lot earlier. So just adjusting to the new schedule and everything, and I've fallen a bit behind on the comments, which I really don't like doing. I appreciate you all taking time to comment, and I also just enjoy conversing back and forth with you all. So just don't think I'm ignoring you. I'm going to get to all of them. So thank you so much for taking out some of your time and hanging out with me for this little palette party. And I hope this was therapy for you, because it always is for me. Until I see you again, make sure you are being gentle with yourself. Talk to yourself nice, stay safe, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.